Hello everyone, this is Mitch, and welcome to episode 9 of our Let's Play Kerbal Space series. So, this episode is going to be a bit of a weird one. I'm basically going to be showcasing what I've done during the Dre's mission. So, this is the aftermath of the Dre's mission. So I'm going to show you what I've done during the episode to save on time. I'm also going to show you some important decisions that I'm going to make that will affect this career, the future of this career. And I'm going to be unlocking some science points and showing you some of the vehicles that I've used during the Dre's mission and that I will use for the next mission. So I'm going to start right away by upgrading the launch pad, because I want to get rid of the 140 tons limit as well as the max vessel size. So boom, there we go, done. I'm also going to upgrade the administrative building, and that's because I don't want to be grinding for money, so I'm actually going to set up some campaigns, namely this one to begin with. So we're going to be trading reputation and reputation gains for funds in the future, because we're already doing good for reputation, so I want more money so I don't have to grind contracts very much to make some, more ambitious missions in the future. So we're going to do that at 50% right away. So we're trading half of our reputation gains from now on for this many funds for each point of reputation. Boom. There we go. Then later on, we will implement this as well. We're going to be trading a quarter of our science for more money, but we're going to leave that alone for now because I want to unlock some key research for future missions. I'm going to start with this bit for the Gigantor extra large solar array and the battery, which is very useful. The other parts are useful, but these two are of prime importance. So, boom, that's 300 points of science gone. I'm going to unlock this for, well, pretty much all the parts, but also because it's a prerequisite. So 90 points. And the mobile processing lab. So later on in the episode, I'm going to show you something that I did. Basically, I hacked the file for this part. So I made it a little bit faster, but I also made it a lot less efficient in terms of science. That said, it's still probably going to give us a lot more science than we will ever need. So that's why I'm going to be converting a quarter of our gains into money as well. Plus, it's nice for space stations. It gives a bit more incentive to build them. So, boom. I'm also going to unlock this node. Not necessarily for the survey modules, because it's going to take a bit of time, and I'm not even sure I want to get into mining. This is the prime use for the survey equipment. But the atmospheric fluid spectrovariometer, that's a mouthful. Anyways, it's useful for getting science out of places that have atmospheres. And that includes Duna, which is going to be our next target. And I'm going to show you what I've done towards that already in a moment. So for now, boom, another science node unlocked. We're going to pick up this one for the larger service bay mostly, but also for the nicer command pods. So boom. And we're going to pick this up for the larger heat shield because I want to be able to have a bit more leeway with my re-entries. So if I make a 2.5 meter rocket right now, I can stick a heat shield on it, but it's going to be flush, and we've seen what that does with our Dre's return mission, meaning that the stuff that's flush with the heat shield might get toasty, and that's not the most safe feeling in the world. So we're gonna buy that. Also unlocks larger heat shields, landing gears, and that kind of stuff. And I think that was it for now. which leaves us a little bit short of the science that we wanted to set up the science conversion in the administrative building. That's pretty much it for the science tree right now. So we're going to leave the facility. I got a cough, sorry. All right. So, Launchpad, administrative building, mission control. So, right now we have mostly Duna contracts available. This one I showed before in the past. You might have missed it, but hey, whatever. So, there we're missing this little bit. So I might actually build a probe to get to Duna and come back so we can unlock another Kerbin World First Record Keeping Society contract. Science data from the surface of Duna, yeah, I mean, we're gonna bring back science from Duna, so might as well take that contract. A big one is this one, build a new orbital station around Duna. Now, 5,000 units of electric charge in your station. That's part of the reason why we picked up the better solar array and the batteries. That's going to make this part of the contract easier. A lot of money involved. The rest is pretty standard. I mean, 5 Kerbals, that's a bit more than I might actually bring normally. But given we might dock a lander on there with the lab and everything, sure, why not? We'll support at least 5 Kerbals. Antenna, docking port, generate power. Obviously, put your station in orbit of Duna. Easier said than done, but we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I picked up a rescue contract for money and extra astronauts. I'm gonna do that off camera, I believe. I might show you the ship and put the file up for download for what I use to get the guy down from orbit, but we'll see. Now, during the mission, actually after the mission, I picked up a few contracts during the Dre's mission, I mean. I've shown you the completion of the science from Dre's, both of them, the surface and space. I did pick up a couple of test parts at the launch site or landed at Kerbin. Easy money. They were for relatively large parts, so that netted a lot of money. Now I'm gonna have to go scold the cats because I can hear background noise in the back. I'll be back in a second. And I'm back. I have still no clue what they were playing with, but anyways, it's taken care of. So that's it. We've done the contracts, science, upgraded buildings. There are no other buildings that I really want to upgrade right now. We could upgrade this tracking station and get more power out of the antenna, but there's really no point. Vehicle assembly building, more parts, yeah, not really needed either. More contracts, nah. More astronauts, we might do in the near future, but for right now, 12 astronauts is plenty. And we haven't touched the space stuff, so the space planes, I mean. So no need for that. So what did I do during the Dre's mission? What was that Mission-ception thing I was talking about? Well, in preparation of sending a lab to Duna, putting a station around there, I placed some relays. So if we open all these relays, for one, I put an interstellar relay around Kerbin. Now it's outside the sphere of influence of Kerbin. It's not orbiting Kerbin, as it says here, it's orbiting the Sun. But its orbital period, its orbital period is just about as long as Kerbin. In fact, it's a few seconds worth of difference. So every year it gets, you know, a few seconds further, but that's really insignificant. But this thing is packed full of antennas, like really full of antennas. And then we have the same thing around Duna. Now, you're going to notice, yes, there's a lot of, you know, it almost looks like it's an orange line, but actually it's a long pack of red lines because it's trying to connect to weaker satellites, with a green one in the middle giving it that kind of orange tint. But it's actually doing fine. So that's the same thing that we've got around Kerbin, but also outside the sphere of influence of Duna and relaying the signal. Now, because of game mechanics, it might be a little awkward, when you're sending data, because if one of those closer satellites can connect directly to a satellite close to Kerbin, or even to Kerbin directly, it might prefer to use the lower signal strength just because it's more direct. So one thing that we might have to do is only limit ourselves to transmitting to 2 or 3 times a year, when only the long-range relays are active, because those provide the most signal strength, and that applies a multiplier to the science you get back from transmitting. So kind of awkward, kind of annoying. I'm not sure what I can do to fix it. If you've got ideas, please post them in the comments. But that's it. And I have a local network. As you can see, there's a lot of lines drawn from this relay to Duna, and that's because there's a bunch of relays around Duna. So first of all, I've got this triad that's way outside of Ike's orbit, and that's going to cover the outside of Ike and all around Duna pretty much 24/7 from these 3 points. Then we have, where is it? 2 polar satellites on a perfectly, well, almost perfectly mirror orbit. And what that does is that it bounces the signal from around Duna, and it can send it to the inside of Ike's orbit. So if we're landed and facing Duna, we've got Duna high up in the sky of Ike, we're not necessarily occluded by Duna by doing this. Those 2 satellites can relay the signal, and even more than that, because they have a low periapsis and a high apoapsis, they're going to spend a lot of time over the opposite poles, meaning that we've got signal pretty much around the poles of Duna 24/7 as well. And since they're going so high, that probably also applies to Ike. And finally, I put a satellite around Ike just to get that, contracts maybe for getting science back out of space from around Ike. And, it can relay signals anyways, so it could be useful in case another satellite is occluded. But otherwise, it's just, mostly for contracts and that kind of stuff. So there we go. We've got really good coverage around Duna. Almost better than around Kerbin, I would say. So that's what I did. And then I'm going to show you the rockets I've used for that. And then I'm going to work on my rockets to go to Duna. I'm going to do that off camera, but I'm going to show them to you in the video. And I'm also going to post the craft files in the description. So make sure you tune in for that. Right now, the relays, because relays are very important. Ever since the communications network has been established. Before that, probes were probes and signal didn't matter that much, but now it's really important. So I'm going to show you. First one is the Echo Long Range Relay Mark 1. This is the rocket that's basically transferring signal from Kerbin to Duna all on its own. This is the long range relay. So this is the launch system. It's pretty huge, as you can see, with docking clamps. I put, a little antenna and a probe core on there so I could deorbit this thing once I'm done, leaving less debris. I'm still quite happy with the low debris count from this campaign, and I'm trying to keep it that way. Now the important part is this nuclear engine, a triad of liquid fueled tanks. Here, those tanks are, similar to the way we did the interplanetary module. And as you can see, what if I click? Yeah, there we go. This stage has over 5,000 meters per second of delta V. That's huge. Not to mention that the launch system is a little overpowered. It'll get up there, really nicely. So, and 0.37 thrust to weight ratio. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to put another cut in there. Cats are acting up again. I'll be back in a second. And I'm back. So as I was saying, 0.37 thrust to weight ratio. It's going to give us similar issues as with the Drazlander, well, the interplanetary module at the very least, but still pretty good. With 5,000 meters per second of delta V, it can get pretty far. Also, 4 solar panels placed in this arrangement. If we extend them, you're going to see they're going to pivot on this axis. All of them pivot on the same axis, and that makes sure that no matter, if you angle the relay right, all those solar panels can spin and always face the sun. You're never, no matter where in the orbit, those solar panels are always going to get almost maximum sunlight. A pair of batteries and a whopping 9 of the RA15 antennas. This is the kind of power you need to transfer signal between planets in Kerbal Space Program. If you're not, using easy options for comms, then this is pretty much the bare minimum. Of course, that you've got the RA100s that are, almost, 5 times, 6, almost 7 times stronger in terms of signal. But they're also, I think it's 550 points of science to unlock, which means that you need the last upgrade to the science and research and development building to just be able to purchase. No, not even factoring in the actual science point cost. So 15 antennas, that's right. Try to make it look good while still keeping it balanced. But that's it. And then we've got the probe, a smaller battery, a simple thermometer in there in case we get contracts to get science from around the sun. And that's basically it. That's my interplanetary relay. Now we've also got a vehicle to send local relays. The local relays themselves are just those. Where are they? There we go. 2 solar panels, cannot be retract. A stack separator to connect them to the parent ship. A probe core, a couple of RA2s, small battery, small fuel tank, and a spark engine. And that's it. And a thermometer again for local science contracts. That's it. That's the relay. But to get them around Duna, I have this vehicle, and I basically put all of the relays around Duna in one fell swoop using this rocket. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So again, another massive launch vehicle with a probe core to be able to deorbit it, a couple of antennas, and, well, antennas, anyways, antennae, Latinates. Anyways, so we've got this launch vehicle, and we have this vehicle, which again uses a nuclear engine. I put thermal control systems on them, but no, radiator panels, you don't really need them, but normally nukes do get hot if you fire them for a long time. Didn't seem to be much of an issue, but anyways, they're on there. Reaction wheel, and 6 of those satellites placed like this. Now, you could stack them one on top of the other, but because there are small parts, and there are a lot of small parts, if you stack them up on top of each other, you're going to end up with a spaghetti. It's going to bend, it's going to be a nightmare to set up in a launch vehicle, and that's it. It's going to be generally annoying. So what I did is this. 3-way symmetry, 3 satellites, did this twice, and there we go. The core of the ship is just a bunch of fuel tanks to feed this nuclear engine. And then you can launch either, well, it's going to be annoying if you launch only, say, 2 satellites at a time. So ideally you want to launch 3, but you can launch 2 or even just 1 if you want. It's going to unbalance the ship, but you know it's possible to still burn and account for the imbalance. So that's it. You can launch a bunch of satellites like that. Each satellite has almost 1,000 meters per second of delta V, so it can adjust its course pretty safely, pretty well. It's got some wiggle room basically. So yeah, all of my Mark II relays, an antenna on top of there just to be able to retain control of this vehicle once all of the satellites have been launched. Probe core, 3 solar panels, because you cannot deploy, well, you shouldn't deploy those solar panels while the satellites are still attached. Danger of breaking them. But you've got 3 on there. Antenna to retain control, as I said. Battery, plenty of battery power when all the satellites are attached, because each one of them has 200. So you're covered there. And that's it. You send that around the orbit of Duna, launch these satellites from a suitable location, fix their orbit, and then you can actually reorient this spaceship into another configuration. So for instance, I actually arrived in an equatorial orbit around Duna, launched 3 satellites to have my first triad and maintain signal, and then I actually went for a polar orbit using this vehicle, launched 2 satellites, went for Ike, and then crashed the thing after the last satellite ejected. And that's it. That's this vehicle. That's all it does. What's it called? Satellite Network Setup Vehicle Series. So that's it. Instant satellite network around the planet, or a satellite or whatever you want to get signal around. So that's it for these vehicles. Now I'm going to work on the Duna vehicles. You're probably going to be able to download these 2 ships from the description of this video, and I might put them in the previous video as well, along with the vehicles that I used for the previous video as well, meaning the Kerbal Mark II, the interplanetary module, and the little station that I used to refuel the whole thing. So that's it. I'm going to see you in a moment, probably hours or days for me. So be right there. And welcome back. So you might notice I'm probably going to sound a whole lot better. That's because I bought a new microphone, and yeah, it's a million times better than the one I was using. So back into the video. Since last time I did one little thing, and that's purchase, or at least unlock, this science node, this one here for the Sepratron. And the reason for that is because I'm going to show you my vehicle, and it kind of required the Sepratrons. So loading the vehicle assembly building. So here are the vehicles I've been working on for the past week, and therefore Duna. As I said, the next mission was probably going to be Duna. Well, it is officially going to be Duna. So here's the, well, from this close you're not going to see very much. So here's the landing vehicle that I'm going to be sending. Now, contrary to the Kerbolo or anything like that, this vehicle is not meant to go from Kerbin to Duna, back to Kerbin. This one is going to go to Duna, and then to Duna, and back to Duna, and to Duna again, and it's gonna dock with a space station, and it's gonna stay there. It's never coming back to Kerbin. So we have the launch vehicle here at the bottom. We have a transfer stage in the middle, and as we can see here, let me do this. So yeah, the thrust to weight ratio is a bit low initially, but whatever, it works. Then we have another stage. Yeah, the middle stage remains fueled by these side boosters. So when we separate, this thing is going to be fully fueled. And then we have a fourth stage, which is really, yeah, it's overkill to go for to Duna, but it's probably not quite overkill because we're going to need to finish the orbit. Basically, the ascent stage is just a little underpowered. Maybe we'll need to use the fuel, maybe not. But anyways, and finally the top stage has about a maximum of 2,000 meters per second of delta V, and that's just enough with the parachutes to go down to the surface of Duna. Well, first to deorbit, go down to the surface of Duna, and go back up to a 100-kilometer orbit and dock back with a station. So that's basically it. There's a bit of a science container here, just to be able to store extra copies of, for example, surface samples and science juniors, that kind of thing. And that's it. We have a probe core because I'm aiming at sending down scientists and not pilots. So that's going to help with that. We have 4 of these little antennas because, antennae, whatever, because we need signal for the probe core to work. And those antennas, I'm never going to get used to that. They stack, like their power stacks 1 for 1. So 4 of them give 4 times the signal strength. So it should be plenty to communicate with the satellites we have around Duna, with the station, and back to Kerbin for control. And that's it. Like, we've got ladders there, a ladder there. It's a bit awkward to get out and to get back in, but it's plenty. It does the job. And, well, if I detached that, you would see that the center of mass is going to be roughly in the center of this place. So that's why the thruster blocks are placed like that across the service bay, because it would be awkward to put them on the surface bay. So I put them on each side. That's probably overkill because this vehicle is actually really light, but like I said, it does the job. So that's our first vehicle. That's what's going to get us down to the surface of Duna. But then we have more. Like I said, we have a space station. This is the one. That one's pretty huge. That one is, I'm not going to lie, it's really huge. And that's the one who needs the separatrons. Because this booster stage is flush with the surface of the center stage. And without those boosters, those separatrons, there is a very, very big chance that the boosters will knock the center stage when you decouple them. So that's why I unlock these separatrons. Now, this thing is huge. Like, that's fully zoomed out and we can't see the whole rocket in a single screen. Unless, well, I do something like that. But anyways, so that's our ascent stage at the bottom. And then we have an interplanetary stage here. Then we have the bottom of the station with 4 docking ports, some fuel tanks, a reaction wheel over there. We have more reaction wheels, Gigantor, solar panels, the mobile processing lab. Now, that mobile processing lab is actually, I modified the file for it, so it's kind of quote-unquote hacked, meaning that it is actually, I made it less efficient. So normally it'll give you, I think, 5 points of science per points of data that you put in there through the conversion. Now it's only going to give me 3. So it's only about 60% as efficient. I've also made it a little bit faster because I don't want this mission to last for like a million years, basically, converting science in the processing labs.
And what else did I do? I think it uses a tiny bit less energy as well. But given that it gives like a tiny bit less energy, maybe, I don't know, 20% max, compared to only 60% science returns, I think that's a fair way to balance the thing. Because I'm not hoping to finish the science tree with this thing. I'm really trying to push myself to go to every planet as much as possible to unlock everything. And besides, we're going to use, well, when we get the science, can I see it? I can't see the science point from here. But anyways, when we get enough science points, we'll set up the policy in the administration building to convert the science to more credits, basically, to fund our future missions. So that's the station. It has antennas. It has this crew quarter for the mission, the contract here, which we picked up a while ago. A bunch of batteries again for the contract. Where are they? They're here. And that's it. No real experiments. The lander is full of those, so it's fine like that. And then we're also going to sand, because that's not enough. Like I said, the lander is not made to return to Kerbin, so we are going to use this, the Duna return vehicle. Gonna turn off the contracts. So again, massive ascent stage. This is overkill, but it's just for fun. This is the interplanetary stage, and when we undock it, well, it's gonna basically deorbit itself, so we don't have too many debris or whatever, just stuff floating around the station. And this return vehicle seats 5. It has docking capabilities because, well, we're gonna dock at the space station. But of course, it's just gonna stay there until the mission is over, and then we're all gonna board the return vehicle and go back for Kerbin. Now, if you've got a good eye, you're gonna notice that it doesn't have that much delta V. It's only got about 1,200s, and that's about, I think, 2/3 of what you would need normally to go from Duna to Kerbin if you have an insertion burn. But yeah, that's about right. But I put this really big heat shield, and basically what we're gonna do is we're just gonna aim for Kerbin's atmosphere, and we're gonna use this very large heat shield to protect all of that and bring us down to the surface safely. With that much ablator from Duna and so on, it should be plenty. It shouldn't be a repeat from the Dre's mission where it was really hairy. So that's our return vehicle, and I built one more, and that's basically a tug. So it's going to be used, and that's much smaller, thankfully. That's going to be used to like do things like pull out the interplanetary stages out of orbit around the station to minimize the debris again. And it could also be used to rescue the lander in case you overestimate how much fuel you've got or anything like that, really. I think it's going to be a very useful vehicle. It's really light and cheap to send, and it's got a ton of delta V. Of course, I went overboard because you could use it to refuel a vehicle as well, so it kind of doubles up in terms of uses. So that's pretty much it for the vehicles I've built. I may build a tiny probe to finish the world's first contract here. Yeah, return to Kerbin from a flyby of Duna, just to unlock more contracts. So that's about it. So if that helped you, if you enjoyed watching, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. You will find these vehicles attached, the vehicle files attached in the description. So thank you for watching. See you later. Bye bye.